Good evening. I hope you had a wonderful day of worship. We are in Acts 23. So, me and my son had the distinct pleasure of meeting a woman in her mid-90s, born 1925, and she is a Holocaust survivor. Yeah, we were at a function after church today, and she shared with us how she lost 40 of her family members. There are only 3 survivors, and she just shared with us the atrocities of that time and how she had to hide out, and there was a garden where for days she would take cover. And then when she was 16, she just simply told one of the guards, like, I'm a teenager. I just want to live. And I thank the Lord for her sharing that testimony because, like I said, we were at an event where they were sharing information about slavery and the beginnings of it in Jamestown, Virginia, and the whole transatlantic passage and everything. But to meet someone who have gone through the terrors of extreme pain just speaks of resilience and God's power to keep people even in 2019. This chapter picks up in Paul pretty much, he's in a very tight situation where there's a band of people who are against them. They're like, you know what, we're not going to eat and drink or do anything. We're going to go on a fast. 40 of them, at least, were saying this. We're going to go on a fast, and we're going to break this fast only when Paul is dead. Can you believe that? If you were in that situation? Well, guess what? The Lord spoke to Paul at night in verse 11 and said, you know what? Be of good cheer, Paul. You have testified of me in Jerusalem, and I want you to still testify of me, bear witness of me in Rome, even in the situation. And Paul was still focused on doing the Lord's will. Amen. Woo, that has something to do with us. That type of commitment. And along the way, even the Lord spoke courage and affirmation and confirmation that he was still on the right track. The Lord will give angel advocates in our trials. What am I talking about? People to speak on our behalf, people to encourage us, saying you're doing the right thing, and people to look out for us. For example, in verse 16, Paul's sister's son got wind of the people who were trying to destroy Paul, and that's his nephew. And Paul's nephew went to the chief captain to tell him what was going on. And the chief captain got wind of it in verse 19, right? And he was like, what is it that you have to tell me? And then in verse 22, the chief captain was like, okay, no problem. Then just make sure you don't tell anybody what you've told me. So you got all of these people lined up looking out for Paul, right? The Lord said, don't panic, be courageous. You have your nephew looking out for you. You have a chief captain, and the chief captain writes a letter to the governor. And in the last few verses of this chapter, it says in verse 34, the governor read the letter and he understood that Paul was from Cilicia, right? Rome. And he said, I will hear thee. I'm going to hear this case against the accusers and everything. When thine accusers are also come, in verse 35, and he commanded him to be kept, Paul to be kept in Herod's judgment hall. So there are people that the Lord lined up, and guess what? In whatever situation that we find ourselves, know that there will be angel advocates that God will post along the way, that we don't have to, panic like, oh my goodness, I'm in this alone. No, be of good cheer. Know that the Lord will never leave us nor forsake us. So to be content in every situation and trusting in the Lord. So as we start this week, knowing that we have some tests, some trials, some tribulations, know that we are in good company We have Father God with us, and know that he's going to have people along the way. And even if we're alone, know that Jehovah Jireh is our provider. Amen. Jehovah Shalom is our peace. Jehovah Rapha is our healer. And Jehovah Nisi is our banner. He's our protector. And he's going to be with us fighting our battles. I hope you have a wonderful week and a wonderful evening preparing for battle and victory.